There she
Hi.
is. Hello.
How are you from the other room?
I'm good. I'm doing great.
Okay.
You're looking nice this
Thank
evening.
you. Thank you very much.
Well, late afternoon. Well, is it evening or late afternoon?
Evening. Evening. We've got a third member of this conversation. Hi. Yes, chewing with her mouth open right next to me.
Oh,
Oh, yay.
that makes me
You are.
that makes me happy.
Okay. Rebecca.
That makes me
Yay.
happy too.
That makes me very happy.
Yes.
Okay. Let's get started, shall we?
All right.
All right. So first, let's start with our check-in. How
All
are
right.
you doing with your mindfulness this last week?
This last week.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm doing okay. I don't know. I'm still.
Yeah. Are you sure about that? Because wasn't it earlier this afternoon when we're working
Oh,
on our Mindful Monday stuff that you were like, what day is it? Is it Tuesday? Yeah, that was you.
yes.
That was
Yes,
you.
that was me.
Yeah.
We were working on the show, and I asked her what day it was,
Yeah.
knowing that this was Monday mindfulness.
So JA is doing great with mindfulness. Yeah.
Yes, I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing? How are you doing?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that. So I'm a hot mess this week with mindfulness. Let's see, where do I start? So I charged my toothbrush for 3 days without the charger being plugged in. That was the first thing I did. And then I bit my lip yesterday when I was eating, and then I bit my tongue today when I was eating. And it's like my mouth was in this fight with itself.
That's right.
And so I think I need to do better, quite frankly.
It's really hard to pay attention when you're chewing, but boy, we certainly get slammed into the moment when we bite our tongue, don't we?
That is true. And then you start to appreciate things like ice and stuff.
Yes. So there's a
All
little tip
right.
for everybody out there.
Yeah.
I'm not a tongue doctor, but if you ever bite your tongue or your lip, put ice on it
Ice on
immediately.
it.
It
It does
really,
help.
really helps. That is
It
not a myth.
definitely helps. And you know how, like, when you bite your lip and then you keep rebiting it for the next like 5 days because it gets puffy, I think
Yeah.
the ice really helps. So
Well, I have one that's
anyway,
been with me since high school. Okay, so we
moving right along.
moving right along. So this week, what are we tackling this week? We are
We are
tackling
tackling myths.
myths about mindfulness.
Myths.
Myths.
Yes.
And there are so many.
Myths. Yes.
There are so
But
many.
let's go with the first one, which is actually, I wonder this from time to time. Is it new? Is it a trend? Is it a fad? Because sometimes like it seems like it is. So is it?
Well, it may be trendy, but it is certainly not new, and it is certainly not a fad. So no, a lot of people think that mindfulness just kind of sprung to life on Oprah Super Soul Sunday or through The Power of Now.
Yeah, which are two really great.
Right. So those are both great
sources. Yeah.
resources for working on mindfulness or spiritual or personal growth, but that's not where mindfulness started. So, look, it is an ancient practice. It actually has its roots in Buddhism and in Buddhist philosophy. And it's been in practice probably for many more years before that, I don't know, but formalized certainly under Buddhism. So we're talking probably 2,500 years. So it has a really strong pedigree. And last week we were talking about the benefits of mindfulness, and those benefits are heightened even more because they have that pedigree and that track record and that discipline behind them. So I love that. That's a myth I love busting all the time.
Okay, and that brings us to the next point, which is myth number 2. Mindfulness is a religious or spiritual practice.
Yes.
Is it?
What do you think?
For me, no. I think it can be used in those things, but I don't think there is a particular religious tie to it the way I do it. But no. You tell me what you think. You've got.
It definitely is not tied to any particular, although it does, like we said, although it does have roots in Buddhism.
Sure, but roots are different than it is practicing Buddhism.
Right. And so if anybody has seen my post on Instagram here where I quote John Kabat-Zinn, he's the guy He's the scientist that's routinely, recognized as the person who brought it over here in its secular form. So, the mindfulness-based stress reduction, he brought it here in the 70s, and it really caught on. And so, no, you don't. And that's, my clients years ago when I was doing therapy work, sometimes there was a concern, will this conflict with my religious beliefs? Because people had religious beliefs that were central to their recovery.
Sure.
And the answer, of course, was no. You can do mindfulness-based mindful-based cognitive therapy, and it doesn't necessarily require any spiritual system. And the nice thing is it can fit into any belief system.
Right.
So even if we're talking, outside of spirituality, if you just have a particular worldview, if you're a nihilist or believe that everything's coming to, you could still practice this. And that's wonderful. And that actually has been, I've actually had people after trainings come up to me and ask me for certain citations because they have clients that are resistant, like I said, to using mindfulness-based practices in recovery. And they take this back to their clients because they think they can show them that there's a way in that isn't tied to or will conflict with any of their religious beliefs. So that's been very powerful.
Yeah,
that's been a powerful one to bust.
I agree. And my practice has nothing to do with either. Yeah. But I definitely see how it can help you connect with those things if that is what you're interested in.
Right.
All right. So now the myth number 3, mindfulness is another word for meditation. This is a good one, actually.
Yes, that's a good one. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think no. Because I do not consider myself a formal meditator by any stretch of the imagination. However, I am an avid practicer of mindfulness.
Right.
So what do you think?
Well, I think that's true. Mindfulness is an aspect of meditation. So we could think about meditation, right, as like 2 prongs, right? There's the prong of concentration, and there's the prong of mindfulness, right? So we pick something like our breath, and we watch it. We focus on it. That discipline, that meditative discipline is so important. But it's from that discipline that mindfulness springs, right? Because if we're watching our breath and we notice our mind starts to wander, that noticing, that awareness is the mindfulness that arises out of the practice. So no, they can be part of the same thing. But no, mindfulness does not equal meditation, although you can practice mindful meditation.
Yeah, I completely agree. And because there are a lot of people that say, I don't have time to meditate. And I get that wholly. I totally get that.
Oh, yes.
Like totally with you on that, if that's how you feel about meditation. I've been doing it before bed lately because I'm really trying. But mindfulness is something that, it's just with me all the time. So I don't have to carve out a special time to do it. Whereas I feel like meditation, you do at least have to make a conscious decision, like I'm going to sit for a few minutes and try this.
Right. But you can do it very informally. We've talked about mindful walking. We've talked about doing dishes in a mindful way. And that it can be a meditative practice, but certainly you don't need to call yourself a formal meditator to get involved with mindfulness.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one, the next myth, mindfulness requires years of training before you can do it.
Okay, I'm going to blow you guys' mind right now. All right. You already do mindfulness.
I do.
Okay. Yeah, you especially, but the people that are watching too, have you ever eaten a little too much of really hot Tabasco or like super spicy horseradish, which I just bought a container of that, by the way, so it's like super fresh. I thought I was going to end up in the next neighborhood. It was like in my nose. Never have I been more in the moment than when I tried that horseradish. I have to say, though, I wasn't entirely without judgment in that moment, nor was I without curse words in that moment. But anyway, seriously, there's every opportunity in the day is an opportunity to practice mindfulness, and you do not have to have any formal training in it. It is just a conditioning, really, of your brain to truly participate in what's happening. Like you made the joke earlier, when you bite your tongue, there you go, you're in the moment.
Well, I've heard people talk about like the only requirement is the intention to do it, right?
Yeah.
So yes. But now we don't intend to bite our tongue, obviously. But the intention to practice mindfulness is the entry point, right? Yeah. So before you take a walk, It's the intention to take that walk in a mindful way before you do the dishes, to be open to the experience and to keep bringing your mind back to the point, the point of focus, back to the point of focus. So that's all that's required. People can start right now. And that's kind of our big thing, you know, that we always want to get out, is you can start right now with whatever life you have going on right now.
Yep, I agree. All right. And then the last big one that we're going to cover is mindfulness can solve all of my problems.
It might, but it definitely, that's not one of its selling points.
Didn't work for me. Not yet, at least.
No, it didn't work for me either.
But it does, and this is kind of a blunt way to say it, but it did help me identify what was working for me and what wasn't. So technically it helped me identify what my problems are. I like to joke around.
That's right.
You know, before, I've mentioned my divorce before and the things that I was going through, and it helped me to realize what I was doing and behaviors that I had and things I was telling myself and things that I was feeling. So it didn't fix those things, but it allowed me to identify those things and then work on those things. And some of those things I worked on using mindfulness, because I would keep realizing I'm feeling this way because I'm telling myself all of these terrible things. You're trying to get a ball? Okay, just 1 second, sweetheart, okay?
And I remember with my anxiety constantly checking in with myself, checking in. It was it's not necessarily mindfulness that does it. It's the constant checking in that does it. So that's how I turned my anxiety dial way down and, turned my, calmness dial way up. It wasn't necessarily because of mindfulness. Yeah, it was, but it was that radical awareness. And I always say to people, mindfulness isn't magic, but it's also not a mystery.
Yeah.
And so it's not going to solve every problem on earth, but don't think it's something impenetrable. Don't think it's something that you can't crack, because it really is something you can do now, and it has really, really powerful benefits. And look, I know you actually mentioned this to me today. We were reading some articles on some things today, and there was something that came out. It's like there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And I remember you kind of had a reaction to that.
Yeah, because the article was saying how, well, it was looking at the Buddhist interpretation of it and saying like, oh, well, what people are doing isn't really mindfulness. And our whole thing, JA and mine's whole thing is, you're always moving toward mindfulness. It's getting into it. It's getting into a way of thinking that helps you understand who you are, really. I know that sounds a little deep, but it helps you kind of dial back the barrage of messaging we get all day long to really tune into what we're doing without having filters to pass through when you do it enough. So who cares? I mean, I shouldn't say who cares, because it does matter what mindfulness is, of course, but whatever it is to you is wonderful, and you should share that, and you should, use that as much as you can, and who knows what it will evolve into also. Excuse me 1 second. Sweetheart, I'll be with you in a minute. I know, but we're doing our Mindful Monday thing. All right. The last two we did, we were fine.
Yeah, that's right. It's okay. Hey,
The third one, we had a rough night last week.
Just ride the wave.
Speaking of mindfulness, yeah.
So what are the takeaways this week?
You go first.
I believe if you can pick one conception or one misconception that you have of mindfulness and challenge it, right? So if you believe that you have to have all this time in your day to practice mindfulness, and that's your reason or your excuse or whatever for not practicing, challenge that. Practice it in short bursts. If you don't have time to sit for 20 minutes and meditate, try a 1-minute breath technique. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 8. In for 4, out for 8. Watch your breath and notice where your mind goes. Watch your breath and notice where your mind goes. And really set that intention for that minute.
Yeah.
You can't set an intention for 20 minutes, set an intention for 1 minute. So find a comfortable position, sit down, lay down, close your eyes, notice your breath, count them. Count 4, 8, count 1 to 5, whatever it is. See what comes up in your mind. And then release yourself from that after a minute. 1 minute. Challenge that. every day this week, challenge that misconception that mindfulness practice takes a long time. Until the end of my days, that will be so important for me to get out there over and over. So what about you? What's your big thing for the week?
Mine's really serious.
I can tell with that setup.
Mine,
serious.
It's very serious. So my takeaway and what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to try not to get hurt. So do you usually walk into walls? Do you usually, I don't know, bite your tongue when you're eating? Do you usually trip on Legos that might be out in the living room or your own shoes? So I'm going to try and go a whole week watching my physical body and trying to be super cognizant and aware of getting through without, hurting myself. If you've ever seen Monsters Incorporated, they have like this thing on the wall. It's like a ticker. It's like days since last incident. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm inevitably going to hurt myself during the week because that's just what I do. But in the true spirit of mindfulness, I'm just going to, when the pain subsides, I'm probably going to laugh and I'm going to take a breath and reset and just start over again. But I think I really need to do that because I am like, I don't know why, but I have had a physically challenging week. So I don't know. That's my takeaway for today.
Well, and that, I love that one.
You're walking, you should do that too, because I'm not the only one in the house that walks into walls, am I?
Well, I've broken all of my toes except my big toes at least once.
Yeah.
And I've broken some of them twice.
Yeah.
And, it's just because I'm not grounded. And that brings us up to this other thing that I want to talk about, how there's a right way and a wrong way to be mindful. This conception of mindfulness isn't necessarily tied to the idea of, open and non-judgment. It's radical awareness. What you're talking about is this idea of radical moment-to-moment awareness and focus about where your body is in space.
Yes.
And that's really, really important. And if you bang your toe this week out there, everybody, it might be a sign that you're just not grounded, that you really do need to stop and focus on what you're doing.
For me, it totally is. And I've been trying, the funny thing is I've been trying to do more mindful eating, like consciously taking bites, chewing it, feeling it. And I felt like I was doing a good job. And I tripped all over myself. It was like the one time I wasn't paying attention. Right. And I bit right through my lip. So.
God.
Yeah, totally gross.
Well,
is there anything else you want to mention as we wrap up this mythical discussion?
This isn't really a mindfulness misconception, but it's an entry point. And it's this. There is a misconception, not just about mindfulness, but about life in general. And it's the idea that our life is really just where we've been or where we're going. And I think that, above all, is what leads to a lot of our issues during the day or issues in our life. And that was my whole story. I was spending so much time back there or so much time over there that I was never here. And that's the last myth I really want to bust. And it's the myth that we are only our story with a past and a future. We're also this moment.
Yes. And we're only this moment.
We're only this moment.
We're only this moment.
Right. That's right.
Who knows if any of the rest of it is real, but that's a different discussion.
We don't. And so that's why mindfulness, it reminds us that we can stop the story.
Right.
We can hit that pause button and take stock of now. And we can make better peace with our past and make better decisions moving forward, less reactive, more responsive, less making decisions out of panic and more making decisions out of reason. Are there times we need to make a decision out of panic? Of course, but that's not all the time. And one of the dangers is that we make every decision in our life out of anxiety or panic. Every decision, down to what we're going to have for dinner or what we're going to eat.
Right.
And so I think we really need to bust that myth that we are only the past and the future and replace it with the idea that we really are only this moment.
Right. And again, all we're saying is like, pay attention to what you're doing. And that's all we do. I mean, I've got a 5-year-old that's just spent the last 7 minutes trying to get a ball from behind the TV stand. Anyway, you did it. I'm so proud of you.
A very safe,
Everyone's
safely
really
placed
for you.
TV stand.
Yeah,
Yes.
everything's secure. That's fine. But it's like, that's the whole day is like a 5-year-old. And so it truly is, I just start with what I'm doing. If I'm eating my oatmeal, that's what I'm doing. And again, it's not all day. I can't walk around this way, but it just makes for a more fun life too, because I can truly appreciate the humor where the humor is, and appreciate myself and laugh a little and just feel better about things, because I'm seeing it from kind of a different perspective. It's like I'm watching a movie and I'm the main character and I want to see what I'm going to do next.
Well, I love that idea. I used to have a teacher that said, think about a film playing and there's a bulb of light and the film runs in front of that light. And we believe that we're that film running. We're the film. We're the explosions on the screen. We're the relationships on the screen.
Right.
And he said, at a very deep level, the end point of a lot of these disciplines is identifying not with the film, but with the bulb behind it. That we are the constant glow of that light, illuminating our life. That we're not the result of the film, that we're actually the creators of it. And I that's why we spend time doing this. That's why we spend time researching this, coaching this, teaching this, training this, speaking on this, is because at the end of the day, identification with the bulb in that metaphor is so much more fulfilling. Is it always possible? Of course not. Is this going to fix everything? Of course not. Is this a magic pill? Absolutely not. But it's the radical awareness of existence, the radical awareness of your existence that changes life.
Right.
And for me, as you know, it's been a literal, you say, oh, it's been a lifesaver. For me, it literally was a lifesaver. And I can't ever take that for granted again. It's not possible. Yeah.
And same with me. Same with me. So I agree. Well, that was deep.
Yeah, that was good.
That was a deep thought. We're at about 20 minutes now.
Okay.
So, and I've got a feisty little 5-year-old here. Thanks, guys.
Bye. Take care.